Yo, what's the word, boys? Welcome back. In today's video, we're going to be ranking UFC fighters based on finishing ability. So in the S tier, we have guys who are going to get finishes no matter what. These guys, when you're going to go watch them fight, you're almost guaranteed to see a knockout or submission, and they're some of the most exciting fighters in the UFC. In A tier, we have guys who get finishes as well. But at the same time, they have some decisions scattered in there, but they're finishers for the most part. In the B tier, we kind of have a mix. They'll get their occasional knockouts and submissions. They'll get their occasional decisions. In the C tier, we have guys who are mostly decision-based fighters, but at the same time, they'll mix in a knockout or submission every once in a while. Not often, though. And then in the Movsar Evloev and Friends tier, you could probably assume what's going to go down there. All right, let's start off with Ilia Topuria. I'm going to put him in the S tier, guys. I'm going to put him in the S tier. He has 5 finishes in the UFC with only 7 fights, so that's a pretty damn good percentage. He has a shit ton of finishes outside the UFC. It's literally submission after submission after submission. I'm not going to... Oh, fuck. Holy shit, I just choked on something. Hey, yo, pause. No diddy, but... Like, he's always finishing guys outside the UFC, but I'm not going to look at that too much because if you're not finishing guys outside of the UFC, what the fuck are you doing? But he has a lot of submissions outside the UFC. He can mix it in. He can knock your ass out. He can submit you. And he also has some pretty crazy knockouts, being that Jai Herbert fight. He finished Damon Jackson pretty damn bad. Ryan Hall, too. So I got to put him in S tier. He's super dangerous. The power is absurd with him, too. Next up, Sergio Gane. I'm going to put Sergio Gane in the B tier. He gets a bunch of finishes. It's kind of 50-50 with him in the UFC, but I feel like his style doesn't really aid finishes. He's more of a point fighter, and he's not finishing the best opponents in the UFC, like Tai Tuivasa. Come on. Derek Lewis, come on. These are just these heavyweights that are just not that good. So I expect somebody of Sergio Gane's caliber to be finishing these guys. So I'll put him in the B tier. Moving on, Sugar Sean O'Malley. I love Sugar Sean O'Malley. Yeah, he's going to go in the B tier. He has a shit ton of finishes. He's super dangerous on the feet. He has a lot of power. If Chito Vera's chin wasn't made out of fucking titanium, another finish. But besides that, he finishes pretty much everybody. If he continues to defend his belt, wouldn't be surprised if he's an S-tier fighter. He has that amazing knockout win over Aljamain Sterling. If he just continues that, he could maybe be an S-tier. The only reason he's not there yet is because he hasn't really beaten that many great guys in the UFC. It's only really Aljamain Sterling. So we'll put him in the A tier for now. And here he is. Welcome to the party, Movsar. Yeah, he's going into the Movsar Evloev and Friends category. He doesn't have a single finish in the UFC. Like, how is that even possible? He has 7 finishes outside the UFC, but we don't care. We don't care about that. He's D tier. No finishes in the UFC. I don't know how that's possible. This dude couldn't finish a hot dog if he was Joey Chestnut. Like, on God, bro. He's going into the Movsar Evloev and Friends tier. Next up, Marvin Vettori. Welcome to the party. Welcome to the party. He's been in the UFC for 8 years, and he has one finish. One finish in 8 years, and it's on his debut. This dude only goes to a decision, no matter if he loses or if he wins. The dude's got a titanium chin, so he either loses by decision or he wins by decision. No finishes for Marvin Vettori. You know what's funny? Marvin Vettori reminds me of that guy from Goonies. I don't remember his name, but he's like that orc-looking character. Marvin Vettori reminds me of him. I feel like that guy would have more finishes than Marvin Vettori. But let's move on. Max Holloway. I'm going to go B tier, man. I'm going to go B tier for Max Holloway. When he was coming up into the UFC and when he had his title reign, he was finishing everybody. I mean, he finished Jose Aldo twice. And then it kind of cooled off when he lost the belt to Volk. Cooled off for a little bit, but now he's kind of getting back into it. He brutally KO'd Korean Zombie, and then, in my opinion, had the best fucking finish in UFC history against Justin Gaethje. So I feel like that's got to mean something. So I'm going to put Max Holloway in B tier. Underrated finisher. Next up, we have Ian Machado. Ian Machado, Gary. He'll go to C tier. He could get KOs, sure, but like his style doesn't really aid KOs. And who is he really finishing? Daniel Rodriguez? Like, come on, boys, come on. He's not really finishing much. His style doesn't aid finishes. You can look at the fight with Michael Venom Page. That was a snooze fest. But he is very skilled. His boxing combinations are great. He has decent power, I guess. He's fluid with his striking. I assume he'll get more finishes in the UFC, but at the same time, he's going to be fighting these top guys. So I don't know who he's going to be finishing, if I'm going to be honest. Next up, Khamzat Chimaev. I'm going to put him high A tier. Now, if this was 2020, 2021, or a maxing Khamzat Chimaev, GOAT potential Khamzat Chimaev, top at S tier. But he's cooled off since then. He really has. It's interesting how the two best guys he's faced in the UFC, being Gilbert Burns and Kamaru Usman, he hasn't been able to finish them. You could argue he lost to Gilbert Burns. I don't agree with you. And then in that Kamaru Usman fight, Kamaru Usman didn't even have a training camp. I know Khamzat still took the fight on short notice, but he was training for Paulo Costa, and he wasn't able to finish Kamaru Usman. And I think Kamaru Usman got a draw out of that fight. I think that fight really should have been a draw. I thought, goddamn, excuse me. But I thought Khamzat won the first round 10-8, and then Kamaru won the second and third round. But at the same time, Khamzat has such a fucking, dangerous presence. He has that like aura in the first round where you can't really fuck with him. He's kind of unbeatable in the first round. So he's still got to go into A tier. Next up, Jon Jones, the GOAT. He's going to go C tier, man. He has 4 finishes in the last 11 years. Like, come on, dude. He's finished Cyril Gane, Daniel Cormier, Gustafsson, and Chael Sonnen. Yeah, I mean, he has some really nice finishes in his career, but as of recent, he's not finishing anybody, dude. Like, Dominic Reyes lost that fight, couldn't finish Anthony Smith. Like, come on, dude. And then he didn't finish Thiago Santos. So, Jon Jones has got to go into the C tier. Not really a finisher as of late. Next up, Tom Aspinall, straight to the S tier. Straight to the S tier. He's literally the future heavyweight GOAT. He is the future heavyweight GOAT, and he is the shortest average fight time in UFC history. Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer. Tom Aspinall is going to go in first place in the S tier. I'm going to kind of categorize these tiers, as who I want ahead of who. I'm going to put Max ahead of Sergio Gane. I'll put Gary ahead of Jones, and then Vettori over Evloev. Let's move on, though. Another S tier guy, Shavkat. 18 wins, never lost, 18 finishes. You really can't debate him being anywhere else besides S tier. The dude's literally perfect. Shavkat Rakhmonov is perfect, guys. He is literally perfect. 18-0, 18 finishes, 0 losses. He's the man. Moving on, we have Corey Sandhagen. I'm going to put Corey Sandhagen in the C tier. Point fighter, but he does beat his opponents up. He'll bloody his opponents up purely based on volume. He's a violent fighter. He really is. You guys listen to him on the Joe Rogan podcast. He's a violent dude. He'll butcher your face, but he does go to a decision in most of his fights. But every now and then, he'll have that flashy KO. Example, Frankie Edgar. So I feel like C tier is decent. He gets his KOs every now and then, but he's mostly a point fighter, and he gets decisions usually. Usually he gets decisions, so I'll put him in C tier. Next up, Colby Covington. D tier. D tier for Colby Covington. Hasn't had a finish in 8 years. I feel like if Yuri Prohaska or Alex Pereira morph this dude with their magic, morph this dude into Primar 9, he'd still miss an open net. So Colby's got to go into the Movsar Evloev and Friends category. He has 4 finishes in the UFC, but like, who is he finishing? Max Griffin? Come on. Colby into the D tier or D tier / Movsar Evloev and Friends category. Next up. Oh shit. Okay. I don't know who put me into this tier list. I'll go top of A, I guess, though. I don't know who put me here, but I guess it doesn't let me go top of A. I guess Khamzat's aura is blocking it or some shit. But I guess I'll go top of A. I do want to tell you guys one thing, though. I have been in contact with Hunter Campbell, Dana White, the UFC, and their reps. They've been in contact with my reps and everything. And I do have a fight booked. I will announce it pretty soon. Well, I'm just gonna announce it now. Fuck it, why not? I know Michael Chandler wanted his red penny night, and I apologize to Michael Chandler, but I will be getting that red penny night. Or should I say Conor McGregor will be getting that red panty night. I will be fighting Conor McGregor later this year. I am the A side of the fight, so I'm kind of debating on where I want this fight to take place. I don't know if I want to main event the Sphere or main event MSG. So whenever I make my decision, I will talk to Dana, and then Dana will tell Conor what's going down. And we'll get that fight sorted. So I'm excited, guys. I've been training hard, and I think I'm an A-tier finisher. I get a lot of finishes. I could go the distance, though. I can mix in my wrestling, my grappling, my striking. I could outpoint you for 25 minutes, and I've proven that. But I could also get finishes. You know what I mean? I could knock you out. I could submit you, and I mostly get finishes, but sometimes I need to prove a point and go the full 25. But for now, I'll put myself in A-tier. Maybe in the future, I have a long career ahead of me. Maybe I'll go S tier eventually. Next up, Tatsuro Tyra. Tatsuro Tyra, I'll go B tier for Tatsuro Tyra. My favorite flyweight in the company right now. He has 4 finishes in 6 UFC fights, so that's a pretty good percentage. And he has solid wins, man. He has solid finishes. He's finished Alex Perez, finished Carlos Hernandez, who had a good performance 2 weekends ago. He's finished CJ Vergara and finished Jesus Aguilar, excuse me. So he has decent unranked flyweight finishes, and I think he's going to continue to finish guys in the flyweight division. So I'll put Tatsuro Tyra at the top of B tier. I like this so far. I think this is very solid. Next up, I'll put Colby above Mavzar as well. Next up, we have Joshua Emmett. I'm going to go B tier for Josh Emmett. No, oh shit, guys, I want him top of B tier. There we go. Funny enough, Josh Emmett, has more decision wins than he has KO wins in the UFC. I know we know him for his power, and he has brutal power, but he goes to a decision a lot. But at the same time, the dude literally sends people to the shadow realm when he fights sometimes. So I have to put him in B tier. I have to respect the power. He had Bryce Mitchell shaken, bro. I was about to make the craziest joke. I'm gonna pause real quick though. He had Josh Emmett shaken though, and that was a really, really scary knockout. Next up, Volkanovski. I'll go C tier. I'll go top of C tier for Volkanovski. I guess I can't put him. Oh, there we go. Bro, what? Why does Volkanovski have aura, bro? Look at that shit. Why does bro have aura? That's crazy, man. He's the only guy with aura here. And I feel like Volkanovski, I don't even know why his bro's got aura. That's crazy, but I feel like Volkanovski is an underrated finisher. He doesn't really need to finish guys, though he's that fucking good, but he has big finish wins, man. He's got to finish over Yair Rodriguez, Chad Mendes, the Korean Zombie. So when he wants to finish guys and he has the stylistic advantage over guys, he finishes guys. But at the same time, he is a decision fighter. He's a point fighter who breaks you down over 25 minutes. So I'll put Volkanovski at the top of C tier. And shit, dude, that aura might bring him to B tier. That's crazy, dog. But next up, yeah, right there, Alex Pereira, S tier. What could I say? Only has 1 decision in the UFC, and that was against Bruno Silva. This dude knocks people the fuck out. He knocks people the fuck out. I think he's the best striker the UFC has ever seen. You could see what he did to Israel Adesanya, Sean Strickland, Jamal Hill, Yuri Prohaska on 2 occasions. He literally just had the best performance of his career. He just destroyed Yuri Prohaska. That wasn't even competitive in the slightest. So I got to put Alex Pereira in the S tier. Next up, Umar Nurmagomedov. Umar could go to the B tier. I feel like he's an underrated finisher, and I feel like he's a lot more well-rounded than people give him credit for. He has, I believe, 4 finishes in the UFC, or no, 3. 3 finishes in the UFC. He can mix it in well. He has dangerous kicks. He's dangerous on the feet, and he could submit you as well. But at the same time, he needs to beat better opponents. So this Corey Sandhagen fight's very telling. But what he's done in the UFC so far, he's finishing guys. So he'll go to B tier for now. Next up, Charles Oliveira. Yeah, I'll put him in S tier. I mean, obviously he's going to go into S tier. I don't know if I want to put him ahead of Shavkat. Yeah, I'll put him ahead of Shavkat for now. He literally has the most finishes in UFC history. So how could I not put him in S tier? Need I say more? Next up, Peyton Talbot's going to go to the back of A tier, fringe B tier. Fringe B tier. He's super dangerous on the feet, and I think he's going to live up to the hype. And he already has one good win over Cameron Simon. I know it's kind of early to put him in A tier because he hasn't beaten any ranked guys, but I think he is going to beat ranked guys, and I think he's going to finish ranked guys. So why not give him A tier, fringe B tier, though? Fringe B tier. Next up, Leon Rocky Edwards. I'll put him in the back of C tier. 4 finishes in 10 years is really, really bad, but at least he has the threat of the KO. You know what I mean? He has the threat of putting that kick high. Oh, my Snapchat notification went off. Excuse me. But he always has that finishing threat, even though he goes to a decision a lot, if that makes sense. And he'll always have that head kick knockout against Kamaru Usman, so that gives him some points. So I got to put Leon in the back of C tier, though, because you look at his UFC career, he's going to decision after decision after decision after decision after decision. It makes me kind of bored sometimes. Next up, Dustin Poirier. Top of A tier, man. Fuck it. No, I'm putting him S tier, dude. Fucking Dustin Poirier's S tier. For as long as DP has been in the UFC, he only has 6 decisions, man. In 16 years with the company, he has 6 decisions. That is crazy, man. And he has some of the craziest finishes we've ever seen in the UFC. Wins over McGregor, BSD, Chandler, Gaethje, Eddie Alvarez. This dude is a warrior, and he finishes everybody. There's no reason why Dustin Poirier should not be in that S tier. Next up, hey, the party, the Movsar Evloev and Friends party has another participant. It is Sean Strickland. I'll put him at the top of the Movsar Evloev and Friends category, but he has 5 finishes in 10 years. That's really not great. His style does not aid finishes at all. He teeps and jabs for 25 minutes, and he doesn't have any great finish wins. He's finished Abus Magomedov, okay, and then he finished Brennan Allen. I mean, Brennan Allen's good now, but at the time, meh. And the biggest thing for me is his style does not aid finishes at all, man. Not in any world. In any world. He teeps and jabs for 25 minutes, and that's his style, so he'll go to the bottom tier. Next up, Jailton Almeida. I'll put him behind me because I think I'm a more dangerous fighter, but Jailton Almeida is a fucking finisher. People forget. Ever since that Derek Lewis performance, people are forgetting that this dude has finished everybody else in the UFC in the first 1 or 2 rounds. He is a supreme finisher in the UFC. Everybody has jumped ship since that Derek Lewis performance, but the dude's a finisher, and he's kind of a freak for the heavyweight division. Next up, Anthony Smith. How has he gotten onto this tier list? I didn't even add him. All right, dude. I mean, dude, fuck it. From this point on, I'll just put Anthony Smith on all my tier lists, even if he doesn't make sense. But, dude, boys, low-key, Anthony Smith is a finisher, dude. Anthony Smith's a finisher. He literally has 14 finish wins in the UFC out of 16 total wins. Bro, that's a crazy percentage. 14 out of 16 is a crazy percentage. The only reason I don't have Anthony Smith at the top of S tier ahead of Tom Aspinall is because he hasn't really beaten anybody that good in the UFC. He hasn't really finished anybody that good in the UFC. But besides that, bro is a finisher. Bro is a finisher. Next up, we're almost done here. Israel Adesanya. I love Izzy. Izzy's one of my favorite fighters. I'll put him at the back of B tier. He doesn't get many finishes. He goes to a decision a lot. He has I wouldn't say bad performances, but sleepy decision performances against Yoel Romero, Marvin Vettori, Jared Cannonier, but he has the finishing ability. Unlike the guys in the last tier, like Colby, he doesn't have the finishing ability. The ability. Izzy does. And when he finishes people, he fucking finishes them, dude. Like, you could look at his finishes inside the UFC. Robert Whittaker KO, brutal. Alex Pereira KO, brutal. Paul Costa finish. I don't even go comment on that all that much, but he still finished him. He still finished him, and that's why he's in the B tier. Moving on, Movsar, or not fucking Movsar Evloev. See, he's stuck in my head because he can't finish anybody. I hope he's finished that hot dog by now. I don't know if he has, but Muhammad Makhachev can go to the top of C tier. He does get finishes, but he barely gets finishes. He squeaks out finishes. He has a boring style that doesn't really aid finishes, but somehow he gets it done. Somehow he gets finishes done. He's finished some decent fighters, but his style doesn't aid finishes, and he squeaks out finishing the fight, if you know what I mean. So he could go to C tier. I don't think he's on that level of a guy like Tatsuro Tyra, Max Holloway, Josh Emmett, who have a real finishing ability. He doesn't have a finishing ability like Umar Nurmagomedov, like Israel Adesanya, so he'll stay in the C tier. Next up, Yuri Prohaska, true samurai warrior. He'll go to... dude, fuck it, dude. No, he's got to go behind Tom. Tom's like record and shit is like ridiculous. But Yuri literally has no, fuck it, dude. I don't care. He's a samurai. He's a samurai warrior. True warrior. He'll go to the top of S tier. My expressions and impressions suck, but we'll work on them. He's got to go to the top of S tier. He literally has 30 professional wins. 97% of them. 97% are by finish. Like, that's genuinely not fair. That's genuinely not fair. So he's got to go to the top of the S, the true samurai warrior. True samurai warrior. Next up, Islam Makhachev. He's going into the S tier. I'll put him at the back of S tier, but guys, underrated finisher. He has a shit ton of finishes in the UFC. He really does. He can mix it in as well. He can knock your ass out. He can submit you. He's an incredible striker, an incredible grappler and wrestler, and he's finished some of the best guys. Excuse me, I just burped into the mic. I hope you guys didn't smell that shit. But he's literally one of the best finishers in the UFC and has finished some of the best guys in the UFC. Has finished Alexander Volkanovski. Has finished Charles Oliveira. Has finished, Dustin Poirier. He's an elite finisher and an underrated finisher at that. And finally, to wrap up the tier list, Benoit Saint Denis can go behind me. Yeah, he could definitely be S tier in the future. He finishes everybody. All of his wins in the UFC are by finish, but he still needs that big finish, if you know what I mean. He has a really good finish over Drew Dober, but he needs a big finish. Say he finishes a guy inside the top 5, then maybe he can go into the S tier. But this is the tier list, man. Let's review it a little bit more just so we have it all down packed. In the S tier, I like that. I think those are the best finishers in the UFC. A tier, Chimaev, myself, BSD, Jailton Almeida, Sean O'Malley, Peyton Talbot, Anthony Smith definitely slides himself into that conversation. I like this, man. I think this is a perfect list. I think this is truly a perfect list. If I had to move guys up or down, I feel like Khamzat has the argument to going S tier. I feel like Holloway maybe has an argument to C tier, but I love Holloway in B tier. I feel like Izzy definitely has the argument to go to C tier. Cyril Gane maybe C tier. I think Anthony Smith definitely has the argument to going top of S tier, man. You know what I'm saying? But I love this tier list. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. And also, I don't care if you're not going to subscribe or anything, but let me know if you guys want me to do put a face cam in these type of videos. Just let me know in the comments. I'd appreciate it. Like, subscribe, follow all my social medias. Link will be in the description. Appreciate you boys. Peace out.